Speaking of tennis, Donovan, our first topic is one that you took an interest in. We both actually simultaneously took an interest in, but it was the first one that you spoke of when we were doing show prep. And it has to do with another 7-time Grand Slam champion, this time on the men's side, Mr. John McEnroe, who's been in the news lately. And you can take it from here.
I love me some John McEnroe because that dude, he ain't scared, man. He is not afraid. He will tell. Listen, he's from New York, right? So,
you know, so
no, he's not. And I remember, I guess to go old sports guy, I remember when he burst onto the scene, and I don't remember this match because, of course, I was a kid, but it was at Wimbledon. And he was playing against Bjorn Borg, who was the heavy favorite in the finals, and McEnroe ended up losing that match, but he fought tooth and nail, and he gave Bjorn Borg all he could handle, and that was the birth of John McEnroe. And of course, we all know about You Cannot Be Serious. He's a fiery guy, okay?
Shock flew up!
Like, you cannot be serious! I mean, like, and, you know, and of course, he's monetized on that a little bit. But this past week, he is doing an interview with a reporter. I don't even know what the woman's name was. Okay, well, there you go. See, that's the funny thing, man. Like, I don't really pay attention to the names of women because they're pretty much all the same to me. But the topic at hand was the discussion of Serena Williams. And McEnroe said, well, Serena Williams is the greatest female tennis player of all time. And so this chick says to him, well, wait a minute, why qualify that statement? And so McEnroe responds to her, and I'm paraphrasing here. He said, look, nothing against Serena Williams. She is the greatest female tennis player of all time. But if she was a man, she'd be ranked like number 700 or something. And of course, predictably, you know, people lost their minds because, of course, he's talking about a woman, et cetera, et cetera. But here's the thing. That reporter she degraded, she devalued women when she asked him, why are you qualifying that statement? Because as soon as she asked him that, it's almost like it was like a self-hate type of thing. She says, well, why qualify it? Well, wait a minute, why qualify anything? So basically she was saying that because he said greatest female player of all time, that he was automatically downgrading her. He didn't say anything about downgrading anybody. She said, why qualify it? So in her mind, Serena Williams being a woman is a mark against her. So, but what it came off as is she wanted to throw him a curveball. She wanted to make him look stupid on national TV. He didn't back down. When they asked him to apologize, he said, fuck no, I'm not apologizing. I'm sticking by what I said. So good for him.
Yeah, national radio. And let's first create a little some context here, because when social media first erupted and was abuzz with this, I got it from tennis Twitter. I'm wondering what happened. You'd think John McEnroe had made some flip offhand comment just to be a dick, right? Such is not the case. Johnny Mac, this is the context. Johnny Mac has written a book that discusses, among other things, his post-playing sense of self, seeing the glass half full and half empty, some of the trials he went through in his personal life, and trying to grow as a human being, as a father, advancing his broadcasting career, and dealing with his children, his wife, Patti Smith, being good at multiple things. It was about all that type of stuff, his life, his take on things. And also he was discussing many other things about tennis in terms of why is tennis not as accessible as it used to be? And why is that the primary reason why in America we don't have as many young tennis players coming up? I mean, Venus and Serena are still the two best players on the women's side. And the next 10 players aren't, with the exception of Madison Keys, can't really stand and trade with either one of them. And they're much younger. Right. And on the men's side, ever since Pete Sampras and, John Isner, he can't get past the fourth round. Right. So these are some of the topics. Right. These are some of the topics he was going into. And he mentioned Serena being the greatest female player of the world. And this is what she did. Her name was Lulu Garcia Navarro. Now she was very crafty. She gave off this earnestness, this enthusiasm, almost a type of reverence and a really non-threatening voice, kind of a perky voice.
It was definitely.
I'm talking to this legend, and she asked good questions at first, especially about the dip in U.S. male talent. But when they got to Serena, this is where she set the trap. Mac referred to her, as you said, as the best female player of all time. But the follow-up question, she used a technique called begging the question. She did the some would not some wouldn't qualify that. Now, the reason we call it begging the question is because you don't name the person who will be qualifying it. Instead of saying person X wouldn't qualify it, this person said she's the best player of all time. Would you agree? They did the some people would say, right? And we know that some people, we know that nobody who watches tennis would say that she would beat Roger Federer. And that's what his point was, is like, why do we do this in tennis over and over again? Why do people keep asking me? And he was very, very alpha about it. I saw him on CBS News this morning. I saw him on Stephen Colbert, and I saw him on Dan Patrick. And he says, if you see Serena again, what would you do to her? Maybe I'd give her 700 roses. You know, it's like, that was perfect.
Agree and amplify.
Yeah, that was absolutely it. I am whatever you say I am. But Mac made some good points. They're always asking me if I want to play Serena. He said Trump once asked him if he wanted to play Serena. He's like, not necessarily, but they're always asking me. But you never say in track, you never ask somebody, you don't ever ask Allison Felix to run against Usain Bolt, right? Now,
listen, man, like what they're trying to do, this is funny. This might actually, this is interesting. I think that what they're going to try to do, and what I mean is the feminist media, I think that they are going to try to organize a Bobby Riggs versus Billie Jean King Part 2. Because when Billie Jean King beat Bobby Riggs, who is about 97 years old, the world thought that, oh, women are just as good at tennis players as men. Dude, John McEnroe is 60-something years old. Serena Williams is still, I mean, she's past her prime, but she is still, I mean, she's still playing on the tour. So could John McEnroe beat Serena Williams right now?
Maybe.
Probably not. But he's 60, but he's 60-something years old.
He's 58.
That's what I'm saying, man. That's not a fair fight. Listen,
listen, here's the thing.
Really want to have an honest...
And people didn't bring this up. I was going to say,
if you really want to have an honest discussion about this, then if they really want to settle this once and for all, Serena Williams versus Novak Djokovic, or Serena Williams versus Rafael Nadal. He would wipe the fucking floor with her, and we can finally dispense with these ridiculous conversations once and for all. It's ridiculous.
Well, here's the thing. Serena said that 3 years ago. She's like, Andy Murray would beat me love in about 10 minutes.
Right.
Okay.
And Andy Murray is the 5th best tennis player on earth.
He's number 3. Well, he's 3 or 4. He's 3 or 4. So yeah. But he's a 2-time Wimbledon champion, 3-time Grand Slam champion. But Serena said this herself years ago. So, and it's one of these things where this is why I love the WTA. The women are not interested in being men. This particular generation of WTA players, they're interested in being women and having their own tour. For 45 years, we've had our own tour. We make our own money. We have our own sponsors. We don't get subsidized like the WNBA. We lobby for whatever pay we're gonna get, and we do our own thing. But we have feminine women. Like, I don't think Caroline Wozniacki wants to play Stan Wawrinka. I don't think not. Carolina Pliskova. There's a comedy amongst the players. There's a collegiality amongst these male and female players, and they have a mutual respect for each other. And I think that includes these women respect these men. But I think there's a generation of feminists that still want to push this, and there's a sports media that are trying to interject some sort of gender, how shall I say, conflict within tennis. We saw it a couple years ago when Ben Roethlisberger wrote a piece on body image, and female players talking about their own body image candidly. And because he wrote the piece, everybody was throwing slings and arrows at him. How dare you talk about women's bodies, blah, blah, blah. No, these are women talking about it themselves. Last year, when Novak Djokovic said, hey, there's a lot of stuff that women have to overcome to be good tennis players, including hormones sometimes. And that's absolutely true, okay? Right. Because when you're going through your period, it can make it a little bit more difficult to play, and that's where you got to give women props for that. I mean, a man doesn't have to go through that during his course of time. So, but he got heat for that. So, but I like the way John McEnroe stood his ground, and moreover, let's just have fun and watch tennis. You know, I mean, but just understand, you know. But at the same time, these very same people who were saying who are ego invested in you, and you saying you should worship at the altar of Serena, say she's the greatest player of all time, say she's equal to the men, but when a man physically defends himself against a woman, all of a sudden now they're sort of smart on you've got to regulate their violence. You know, what were these same people saying about Joe Mixon when he defended himself against Emilio Molitor?
There you go.
All right.
There you go.
So,
and I'll actually point out to you before we move on here is it's interesting that the people who seem to be pushing this gender conflict within the world of sports narrative are women who don't play sports. These are women who never competed in anything. All of the people who push this feminist agenda, none of them play sports. They're basically desk jockeys. Oh yeah, Serena's the greatest of all time, and she could beat this guy and that guy in the tour. Yeah, it's easy for them to say that from behind a sports desk. But just like you said, Serena Williams acknowledged that Andy Murray would wipe the floor with her in under 10 minutes and wouldn't break a sweat doing it. Dude, Andy Murray could probably beat Serena Williams left-handed.
I wouldn't say all that, but yeah, I mean, he would beat her right-handed pretty handily. And, you know, most sports are like that with men and women. But on the flip side, if you take a sport like gymnastics, they have to have different events for the men than they do the women, because the men wouldn't be able to compete because they have lower centers of gravity. They can't do what the women do on those uneven bars. So when it comes to grace and balance, the women are better in the sports. When it comes to power and speed and things that involve height and physical dimensions, the men are going to be better.